PX Ford Ranger Mazda BT50, and you've got the fault code P0652 active. Now this is a fault code that will normally be followed with a gazillion other fault codes. Now this car had no less than 467 codes. None of them were active but the actual P0652, which is sensor reference voltage B circuit low, which really makes you think that it's got a sensor issue, but it hasn't. Now, as I said, this code will generally be followed by a heap of inactive codes which are of no relevance to the vehicle whatsoever. They will be regards to a EV vehicle, electric vehicle, and you'll just have to go through, clear all the codes, and then deal with the ones that are active. Now, if you do go through and clear them all and the only code is P0652, easy done. All it refers to is that there is voltage drop between the battery and the alternator. The alternator in these things is smart enough to tell the engine ECM that I am charging at 14.2 volts, and the engine ECM is looking at the battery voltage going, hey, I've only got 13.8 volts, I've got to throw a code, and the only code it's got to throw is a P0652. Now, the main cause for this code to come on is with Ford Rangers or Mazdas that are used to tow caravans with lithium battery setups or lithium battery setups in the canopy of the ute, where the alternator is constantly charging at high output all the time. Now, the alternator is rated at about 130 amps in these things, so they can do it quite well, so it's not going to really hurt them, but you need to check your voltage drop to get the definitive on the code. So the first thing you're going to do, start the car up, check the voltage across here with your multimeter. You'll probably find you'll have 13.8 volts roughly, and 14.2 volts at the alternator. Now you'll have to measure on the positive stub, which is around the back on here, and onto the case. Now if you've got that, the next place you need to look, which is all the ones I've found so far, is that it's got a hot joint on the actual positive cable that is around on the back of the alternator. There's the stud that it connects onto there. Now this has heat shrink on it, and a good indicator is that the heat shrink, which is glue lined, will have a heap of glue that's oozed out of it because it's just been running physically that hot. The other indicator is you can see there the difference in the color from what the cable should look like, a bright red to a burnt red. That's because this has been running that hot. Now, a hot joint is where you get a bad connection between the crimp and the wire in this case. So there's two fixes for it. You can cut it off, cut the lug off, put another terminal on there, but you'll end up with the same problem again. The easiest way I find is to grab a gas torch and solder it using some solder and heating the lug just from the back and dipping the solder onto the lug as it gets to the right temperature. That's a good, quick, simple way to fix the problem. Tape it up, heat shrink it back up, whatever you want to do, and the job is done. The other thing to note is the factory nut on the back of the alternator actually has an anti-rust corrosion finish on it. I'll get it out. This is non-conductive, so it doesn't help with the connection on the alternator at all. It just makes it worse. You need to get a normal zinc plated nut and put on the M8 stud, M8 by 1.25 stud on the back of the alternator, and that'll help stopping the problem occurring again. One interesting thing to notice, before it'll throw a fault code, the engine will get hard to start. So it'll take take 2 to 3 goes to get the engine to start. That's a good indication that the actual car's got this problem, but it won't throw a code for a little bit until it actually decides that it definitely does have a continuous problem. Now sometimes you can check these. If you don't have a big enough load on the car, it won't show you the actual fault in the charging circuit because there's not enough current draw through that wire. So you got to make sure you're testing the car under the conditions that it's operated at.